Sorry about that. Chapter 6 is longer than I anticipated. So I'm going to pick up where I left off and we'll finish from here. Okay? There was a rustling sound as Sturm shoved aside the brush covering the doorway, his face dark and brooding. "Stop this!" Sturm said, glowering at Flint and Tass, his mustaches quivering. His dour gaze turned on Tass. "I could hear these two clear down by the lake. They'll have every goblin and cran upon us. We've got to get out of here." "Well, which way are we headed?" An uneasy silence fell. Everyone stopped what they were doing and looked at Tanis, with the exception of Raceland. The mage was wiping his cup out with a white cloth, cleaning it fastidiously. He continued working, his eyes downcast, as though totally uninterested. Tanis sighed and scratched his beard. "The Theocrat in Solus is corrupt. We know that now. He is using the goblin scum to take control. If he had the staff, he would use it for his own profit. We've searched for signs of the true gods for years. It seems we have found one. I am not about to turn it over to that soulless fraud." Tika said that she believed the High Seekers in Haven were still interested in the truth. They may be able to tell us about the staff, where it came from, what powers it, and what powers it has. Tass, give me the map. The Kender, spilling the contents of several pouches onto the floor, finally produced the parchment requested. "We are here on the north bank. We are here on the west bank of Christamir," Tanis continued. "North and south of us are the branches of the Carolus Mountains, which form the boundaries of Solus Vale. There are no passes through either range except through Gateway Pass south of Solus." "Almost certainly held by goblins," muttered Sturm. "There are passes to the northeast?" That's across the lake," Flint said in horror. "Yes." Tanis kept a straight face. "Across the lake. But those lead to the plains, and I don't believe we want to go that direction." He glanced at Goldmoon and Riverwind. "The west road goes through the Sentinel Peaks and Shadow Canyon to Haven. That seems to me the obvious direction to take." Sturm frowned. "And if the High Seekers there are as bad as the one in Solus?" Then we continue south to Qualinesti." "Qualinesti?" Riverwind scowled. "The Elvenlands? No, humans are forbidden to enter. Besides, the way is hidden." A rasping, hissing sound cut in the discussion. Everyone turned to face Raceland as he spoke. "There is a way." His voice was soft and mocking. His golden eyes glittered in the cold light of the dawn. "The path of Darkenwood. They lead right to Qualinesti." "Darkenwood?" Caraman repeated in alarm. "No, Tanis." The warrior shook his head. "I'll fight the living any day of the week, but not the dead." "The dead?" Tasselhoff was asked eagerly. "Tell me, Caraman." "Shut up, Tass," Sturm snapped. "Darkenwood is madness. None who enter have ever returned. You would have us take the prize there, mage?" "Hold!" Tanis spoke sharply. Everyone fell silent. Even Sturm quieted. The knight looked at Tanis's calm, thoughtful face, the almond-shaped eyes that held wisdom of his many years of wandering. The knight had often tried to resolve within himself why he accepted Tanis's leadership. He was nothing more than a bastard half-elf, after all. He did not come from a noble blood. He wore no armor, carried no shield with a proud emblem, yet Sturm followed him, and loved him, and respected him, as he respected no other living man. Life was a dark shroud for the Solamnic knight. He could not pretend to ever know or understand it, except through the code of the knights he lived by. "Est solarum oath mythos." My honor is my life. The code defined honor and was more complete than detail. More, I'm sorry. The code defined honor and was more complete and detailed and strict than any other known on Krynn. The code that held true for 700 years. But Sturm's secret fear was that someday, in that final battle, the code would have no answers. He knew that if that day came, Tanis would be at his side, holding the crumbling world together. For while Sturm followed the code, Tanis lived it. Tanis's voice brought the knight's thoughts back to the present. "I remind all of you that this staff is not our prize. The staff rightly belongs to Goldmoon, if it belongs to anyone." We have no more right to it than the Theocrat and Solus. Tanis turned to Goldmoon. What is your will, lady? Goldmoon stared at Tanis, to Sturm. Then she looked at Riverwind. You know my mind, she said coldly. But sorry. You know my mind, he said coldly. But you are a chieftain's daughter. He rose to his feet, ignoring her pleading gaze. Then he stalked outside. What does he mean? Tanis asked. He wants us to leave you. He want to take the staff to Haven, Goldmoon answered, her voice low. He says you are adding to our danger. We would be safer on our own. Adding to your danger, Flynn exploded. Why, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for you wouldn't have I would have nearly drowned again if it hadn't been for the dwarf began to sputter in rage. Tanis held up his hand again. Enough! He scratched his beard. You will be safer with us. Will you accept our help? I will, Goldmoon answered gravely. For a short distance, at least. Good, Tanis said. Tass, you know your way through Solus Vale. You are a guide, and remember, we're not on a picnic. Yes, Tanis, the Kender said, subdued. He gathered his many pouches, hung them around his waist and over his shoulders. Passing Goldmoon, he knelt swiftly and patted her hand, then went out of the cave entrance. The rest hastily gathered their gear together and followed. It's going to rain again, Flint grumbled, glancing up at the lowering clouds. I should have stayed in Solus. Muttering, he walked off, adjusting his battle axe on his back. Tass, waiting for Goldmoon and Riverwind, smiled and shook his head. At least some things never change, dwarves among them. Riverwind took their packs from Goldmoon and slung them over his shoulder. I have made certain the boat is well hidden and secure, he told Tanis, the stoic mask back in place again this morning, in case we need it. A good idea, thanks. If you will go ahead, Riverwind motioned, I will come behind and cover our tracks. Tanis started to speak, to thank the plainsman, but Riverwind had already turned his back and was beginning his work. Walking up the path, the half-elf shook his head. Behind him, he could hear Goldmoon speaking softly in her own language. Riverwind replied, one harsh word. Tanis heard Goldmoon sigh. Then all other words were lost in the sound of the crackling brushes. Riverwind obliterated all traces of their passing. End of chapter 6.